All right, so my title slide, Secrets from Google, that's what I was asked to present on just 2 days ago. So I tried to put up a presentation together in terms of everything that I think are the values of Google, not just what I think. Actually, what I will share with you is the values of Google that have been true to the company for many years. As Nicole mentioned, I've been in the company, I joined recently, just about 11 years ago. That's been quite a while, and it's funny because as I prepared these slides, I went through the same values that I was sharing in previous presentations, and I found them still very true today to Google. So I feel that we have remained very true to our core values. Now, in addition of this, I'm going to give you my personal flavor based on my experience at Google, based on my readings, in terms of what I think are extensions to these values, which could be useful to you in your everyday life. All right, so I'm an engineer, telecommunications, electronics. I do a lot of coding on the side. I also have a business degree. And when people ask me, who am I? What do? I do tons of things because I'm just very excited. So that's why I've added this list of. I love to take photos for the government people. I love to take photos of Indonesia. Right? I'd like to promote Indonesia. If you go to my blog, you will see I've actually posted many stories about various places across Indonesia. I also acquired a drone a few months ago, so I try to capture videos, and I'm starting a YouTube channel also with drone footage. So I'm very excited about what you can see from a standpoint that you don't have, right, from the human eye. It's very interesting to examine things. This is where I'm based officially in Google. This is a very small glimpse of the Google Zurich office. It used to be my favorite office, actually, until Singapore had a new office. What I do at Google is, basically, in a very short sentence, we help, with my teams, we help startups build better mobile applications. Right? So if you have an app idea, we're going to help you try to use Google technologies and make your app better. So I have teams based in Africa, Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia. So if anyone travels to Singapore, let me know, and I'll be happy to get my team to show you the office. This is Zurich. The slide on the left side is actually something that only guests use. I'm not using this on a daily basis. You look a bit silly, going down the slide. And then you have these little huts where you can have meetings or personal phone calls. I mean, this is just a very small example. Let me go to my next slide, which is the 10 things we know to be true at Google. This is actually public information. I think it used to be hidden in one of the pages on the company. I don't know if it's still there, but I want to share some things with you on these 10 values, and then I'll expand on this. So the one thing is, we focus on the user first, and all else will follow. A lot of the companies, a lot of the startups are obsessed, not saying necessarily about Indonesia, but making money. It is important to have a business model, but the thing is, you want to focus on the user, so the user experience is fantastic. I have one good example in mind right now, which I remember from many years ago, back in the States. I don't know if anyone has heard of the company Zappos. Zappos, yes. So what they do is they sell shoes online. And they've been around for a while. They've been acquired by Amazon a few years ago. And what I remember from the story of the CEO is they've made everything possible to give a very good user experience. How did they do this? Does anyone know? How did Zappos deliver an outstanding customer experience? As you may know, when you call a call center, a bank or whatever, they usually try to solve your problem very, very quickly, right? Because they have many people, many customers on the phone waiting to get their problems resolved. At Zappos, they have no instructions to reduce the time as much as possible and deal with the issue. They will take the time necessary with a customer, even if it takes hours, to guide them on the phone on what kind of shoes they need, right? And that way, customers are so happy they just spread the word to other companies, to other possible customers, to be able to buy shoes to the same company. It goes even to the extent that there's no script for the people on the phone with the customers. And for instance, they have enough autonomy so that when there's some issues to deal with, they will be able to take decisions. For instance, one day there was a sad story. A woman called and said, "I'd like to return the shoes of my husband because he died in a car accident." A very sad story. what the sales representative and the customer service guy on the phone did was actually order flowers for that woman. He had the address, right? So he ordered address without asking the woman, without asking the supervisor. And the result was all these little tidbits. I remember them. I've never bought on Zappos ever, but I'm here today talking about Zappos, doing promotion of Zappos when I have no stock, no equity into Zappos, and I'm still delighted by that anecdote, right? So this can go a long way. Focus on the user. Everything else will follow. If you delight your customers, they will start paying for whatever you want to sell them. The next thing is do one thing really, really well. Actually, I have an extension to this. I'm already thinking about the next thing I want to say. But one thing, and the example of Google in this case is search. So it is true that we have things like Google Maps. But if you look carefully on maps, the search engine is very good, right? Fairly good. Maybe not in Indonesia everywhere, but at least to me it works pretty well. If I want to go to Grand Indonesia, from Grand Indonesia to here, to the airport, it will give me the answer very quickly, right? So what Google is good at fundamentally is searching and giving you the answers at lightning speed, right? And accurate, relevant results. So we really focus on being very good on search. Now we've expanded into other areas, but fundamentally Google is good at this. So this is also one piece of advice, is really focusing on one thing you do know very well. You'll see later on that I want to expand on this, where it's also important to expand your horizons and see other domains, so you can mix and match ideas. I've mentioned to you that I love skateboarding and I do drone footage and photography, and actually being interested and curious about all these aspects allows me to then cross and mix ideas between one another. It's actually quite useful. So a good recommendation sometimes is to have one core area where you're very strong at, where you're very passionate. It could be dancing, music, sports, it could be journalism, it could be, public policy, and then you have one or two extra areas where it's kind of a hobby. You're interested. You're not the expert, but you may actually have some ideas which go from one area to another. The third thing is fast is better than slow. In the context of Google, is delivering the results right away. You're not going to wait 5 minutes for a search result. Right? It's not a manual process. In case anyone's wondering, when you're typing on Google, there's no one typing the answer behind it. Right? It's automated, but still, you have to do this at lightning speed. You're going to get impatient if you don't get your results right away. How often do you refresh, your email or whatever app you're using because you want to have the update in your app, right? So our attention span is declining over time, right? We cannot wait any second longer to get the information that we need. So really delivering the result, the information as quickly as possible, is key for the user. Number 4, you don't need to be at your desk to get the answer. So that was more true a few years ago, because how Google started was offering results which worked fine on a laptop. But the rest of the world, and especially in the past 4 or 5 years, everyone has a phone, whether it's a cheap device or a smartphone. So you need to think about giving results and information on mobile devices. There used to be that trend about tablets, now it's mostly mobile. So really being able to adapt and think about which device your user is actually using is fundamental. The additional thing nowadays, you may have heard of things like Google Home or Alexa for Amazon, or Apple Siri, and I don't know if they have devices yet at Apple. Maybe they have the home devices. HomePod, is it? So this is another device. Like, there's no screen in some instances, right? Amazon has a screen on some of their devices. So how do you tailor your results which are meaningful on a device which is not showing a screen, which is giving you the answers in audio format? So you don't have to be just in one situation to be able to have these results. You have to think about your user and how they're using the information that you want to provide them with. You can make money without doing evil. This one was a core principle of Google. I know there's a lot of controversy about Google right now because it has become very big. But the point here is to be very clear. For instance, when we do, by the way, let me backtrack a second. Do you know how Google started? How many search engines existed before Google? How many do you think? It was not the first search engine. 3? No, more than that. 4? More. How many search engines? More than 7? More. Less than 20. I like how at least you know how to count. I'm happy. Like you know how to increase the number. There were 18 search engines before Google, right? 18. As you'll see later on, being first doesn't always matter. What matters is being relevant, making it better than your competitor. And the reason why Google was more relevant, do you know why? How Google managed to be more relevant than Alta Vista, Lycos, Excite, I don't know if you remember these ones, or Yahoo even? You remember Yahoo? Why was Google more relevant? If you're old enough, and I'm old enough to remember this, the initial search engines were purely analyzing the content on the web page. So we're looking like, let's say you have Tempo, right? Let's say we're on a Tempo website. So the search engine would look at the information on Tempo and look at all the keywords, right? So let's say I'm then searching for information on Jakarta, and I'm looking for, I don't know, presidential elections Indonesia. I get a result because Tempo talks about presidential elections, let's say. The thing is, spammers, let's say pornographic websites, illegal websites, knew how the search engines worked. So what they would do is they would put at the bottom of the website, presidential elections Indonesia, presidential elections France, any kind of topic which has nothing to do with the website. That way the search engine is fooled. They will index, and it's not relevant. When you type presidential elections back then, you'd have meaningless information. It's senseless. You'd have to go pages and pages on the search engine to find useful information. So then the search engines got smarter. They thought, okay, we're going to put text in, we're going to remove all these stupid text, which is not relevant. But the spammers were even smarter. What they did is they put the text in white on white background. It was still there, or black on black background, right? So they would type tons of keywords which are not relevant, just hiding it in the website. And the search engine did not see it. So the spammers were always one step ahead. What did Google do? What did Google do? Does anyone know how Google search works? Still works the same today. We're just refining it. Anyone? PageRank? You know too much. I can tell. I can see it in your eyes. PageRank. So what PageRank is, to explain very, very quickly, is for that website, Tempo, you look at how many people on the web, how many websites are referring to the Tempo website, and how many of these websites are credible, right? We give them a score, and if, let's say I'm New York Times, and I mentioned Tempo as in my random article, New York Times has a high credibility, right? So because I'm pointing and I'm linking to Tempo, it will give Tempo high credibility. And the more links you give to Tempo, the more it has credibility. Obviously, if you're a spammy website, you will not be listed by New York Times. They will not mention you. They will not even know you exist. So that's the way it worked initially, providing relevant results. And the reason I come to this thing where you don't have to be evil to make money is that we focused initially, 20 years ago when the company was founded, on providing the most relevant results. Advertising was clearly distinguished, right? There is pure organic results, and nobody can pay to be better placed there. If you pay, you're very clearly on the side, when you're on the web, or on the top or at the bottom, but it's marked. It says ads by Google, sponsored, right? There's no ambiguity. Now, there are some search engines in some countries currently which are a bit more dodgy on this. They're not making a very clear distinction between the two, right? So the point here is that you don't have to be evil and trick your user. You can actually provide the relevant results and still make money by making it very clear. This is how we make money, and it does not impact one in the other. There's always more information out there. So that was also a value very true at Google many years ago, and still true today. There's not just websites, right? There's libraries, there's databases, there's PDF and data from the government. I remember a meeting a couple of years ago with Smart City in Jakarta. I remember they have API, they have data about the live schedule for the Trans-Jakarta. Right, this is data that is useful to index. Imagine I'm a startup and I want to imagine a new delivery service taking advantage of Trans-Jakarta. I have a very exciting idea that I keep repeating, but it has not been invented yet. I can tell you more another time. But I would need to have the live updates from the Trans-Jakarta to know exactly when the bus arrives. So I can maybe deliver a parcel at one point and then get it delivered at the other point. This is data that you can also index. let's not be constrained with the way we've been operating up to now. Operating up to now is we analyze websites, but it's not just websites. There's data maybe from private sector companies like Gojek, and maybe it's useful to open up that data and index it and search, and for people to be able to search for it. Next one, the need for information, this is very obvious for you, crosses all borders. By this, it means there's information in different languages, right? In Bahasa, and you have various dialects. I was just in Nigeria a month ago, not even a month ago, I have a team based there. What's interesting with Nigeria, in case you don't know, it's not exactly the size of Indonesia just yet. It's about a little bit shy of 200 million people. But it will be as big as China in the next few decades. There will be 1 billion people in Nigeria. So watch out, Nigeria, which is the 7th biggest country, Indonesia's 4th, will be bigger than Indonesia. Right? So we want to see things happening in Indonesia before this happens. Right? But Nigeria is changing. The reason I mentioned Nigeria, it has 255 dialects. 255. Right? So information is not just in English or Bahasa. There's many dialects also in Indonesia, I am sure. I don't know much of Indonesia myself in terms of languages. I just know apa kabar and baik and terima kasih and that kind of things. But that's about it. But the thing is, again, indexing and searching for information goes across all the borders. So you have to remain open-minded and make information useful in those various languages. You can be serious without a suit. So usually I'm not dressed like this. I just did this for you. Oh, you're so privileged. I usually dress like Yansen, like shorts, t-shirt, and on the skateboard it's easier, and flip-flops. And the point is, we don't care about how you look like at Google. We don't care where you come from. My team is very diverse. We have women, we have men, we have people who are young, people who are older, people of all origins. Have only one American on my team, actually, because I lead emerging markets, so I'm happy that people are actually from different regions. But the point here at Google, what is very important, that we focus on results. What are you achieving? It doesn't matter if you work 10 hours or 50 hours or 100 hours a week. And now, I know this is very difficult for many people in many countries to accept. I am French, and I can tell you the French traditional company is probably like the Indonesian traditional company. You expect people to show up at 9 o'clock in the morning and to go home at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and that's it, right? You're upset as a manager if you don't see your employees at work. This is not how Google works. And Google is quite successful, right? It doesn't mean it's the only way to make things work. I have seen the opposite trend. And I think Yahoo has experienced this. When Marissa Mayer took over as CEO, she removed a policy which allowed people to work from home because people took advantage of this. Too many people were working from home. They never met each other anymore in the office. So let's be careful, right? You don't need to wear a suit. You don't need to show up at the office. But still, you want to make sure there's a strong work culture. You want to make sure that people actually do some work and work together. Great is just not good enough. By that I mean that you have to constantly innovate. You can't just rest on your laurels. Google is quite powerful today, but there's a lot of competition, right? Amazon, Facebook, Apple, there's competition coming from everywhere. Let's talk about Gojek, for instance. I have a lot of meetings in Indonesia with banks, and they're interested in innovating. They don't know how to innovate, so what they're looking at is possibly investing in fintech companies, fintech startups. But I tell them, be careful. It's not just startups which can bring you the innovation. Competition is not only coming from other banks or from international banks. It's also coming from players you may not think are competitors, like Gojek. Why? Because you have mobile payment or wallets with Gojek. Or WeChat. WeChat initially is a messaging platform, and they do way more than this. So be careful. If you're a traditional bank and you're not innovating, you're going to die. And I say this without mincing my words here. And the reason I say this is, I live in Switzerland. I'm French, but I live in Switzerland, and I work at the Zurich office officially. And obviously, I have a Swiss bank account. Now, Switzerland is known for what? Cheese, chocolate, and banks, right? Basically, gold. The Swiss banks are terrible. I'm going to get rid of all my Swiss banks and go for a British startup called Revolut. They have 2 million accounts, 1 million in the UK, 1 million outside of the UK, because they're way simpler. I get interbank exchange rate, right? So if I spend in any country, they will give me the exact exchange rate. If I use my credit card for my Swiss bank or any traditional bank anywhere on the planet, almost anywhere, you're going to pay 3% more than the official exchange rate, at the very least. I don't want to give more money to the bank. They're already making money on my savings, right? Why do I have to go to a small startup which has no credibility, no name, barely known, and go away with UBS and PostFinance and Credit Suisse, like very nice brand names, like very credible. So innovation, like even big companies have to continue innovating, whomever you are. So this is what we continue at Google. So Sebastian's extension, what I shared with you were the official Google values, and that I continue seeing after 11 years. Now, I keep reading, I keep managing different teams on different regions, and I've come to realize a few more things, which I think could be useful in any context, whether it's in your personal life, in your professional life, or if you create a startup. Here's one thing. You know this guy? There's so many quotes from this guy on the internet, right? On Instagram and elsewhere. It's like Einstein has said everything. Probably not even a quote from him. Do you know this guy has produced 248 publications of extremely minor value? 248 publications in physics, which has almost no value. And he's known for mainly the theory of relativity, right? That's what he got, and he didn't even get the Nobel Prize for this, by the way. The point is, produce a lot. Quality actually comes from quantity. You look at any artist, the mathematician, you can look at Mozart, Beethoven. They've produced hundreds of compositions. And it's funny because when you asked Beethoven, he was asked to rank the top 10 or top 50 or top 30 compositions. And you compare that with what music experts consider to be the top production of Beethoven. There was very small overlap. So you're actually a very poor critic of your own work. So keep producing new ideas, keep producing things, and don't worry, a lot of it will be rubbish. A lot of it will not work. I've tried so many things at Google, you have no idea. Got killed because of politics, because my boss didn't like it. Anyway, you have to keep producing, keep thinking, keep reading, keep discussing to come up and produce. This is the only way to produce quality content or quality startups or quality work in whatever you do. You may get lucky. Yes, it is possible to get lucky, but it's very rare, right? It's very unlikely that you're going to get lucky on your first hit, on your first thing, right? Even Mozart, when he is said to have produced work when he was 6 years old, may not have been the best work, but the thing is, he had already 6 years from the moment he was born to being 6 years old, to being exposed by his parents to music. He had heard thousands and thousands of hours of classical music, right? So he had already some background. Talent doesn't come from nowhere. And a good book to read about this is The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. He shows where talent comes from. He has many, many interesting examples. You will see that whatever genius you think exists out there is actually not really a genius coming from the sky or from wherever. They actually have some background. They have either worked a lot, 10,000 hours is the usual milestone, the golden standard for becoming an expert at something, whatever it is, skateboarding, let's say, or music, or whatever it is. But also exposure by your parents, by your environment, by coming to presentations where you maybe, hopefully, you get inspired. What I hope to achieve today is there's one thing you're going to remember today, whether it's the Zappos example, whether it's being inspired to skateboard with me in Jakarta. So I'm not the only one on the streets. I look a bit silly. All right, the second thing I want to share with you, which I've realized is very difficult. I'm going to talk about monkeys very briefly, about a real experiment. And the point here that I'm going to make is to challenge assumptions. Now, do you know about this experiment, which is a real one? You have 5 monkeys in a room. Now, some of you have already heard this because I mentioned it yesterday. You have 5 monkeys in the room. There's a ladder on the side of the room, and there's a basket of bananas at the top. Now, what do the monkeys do? They want to get the bananas, right? So one of the monkeys tries to climb the ladder. But what happens right before he reaches the banana, there's a scientist, in his lab coat, in his white lab coat, who has a hose of cold water. And he's a human being, right? He's like, what am I going to do with the monkey? So he throws the water at the monkey, and the monkey's like, scared and afraid, so goes back down the ladder and doesn't get the banana. What's next in the experiment? They remove one of the monkeys and put a new monkey instead. So there's 4 monkeys from the previous experiment and 1 new monkey. Now, the new monkey has not seen the water. So logically, he climbs up the ladder. You know what happens? No water this time. The other 4 monkeys grab the monkey and put him down. They don't want him to be, scared with the cold water. They know what's going to happen. What happens next? Each of the original monkeys are replaced one by one with a new monkey. In the end, 5 monkeys who have never seen the water, and they just sit still. Bananas are up there. They never climb the ladder. They don't even know why. We're exactly like this. We should challenge assumptions. Don't think that it's because it has been that way that things can't change. It's not because you've never had, let's say, in the US, since you're from the US, you never had a woman president. It may change one day. It's not impossible. It failed last time, but it may happen next time. It's not because one way, things are one way here in Indonesia, and if you have government people, it's very difficult as a foreigner to invest in Indonesia, for instance. Right? I cannot have Indonesian citizenship without giving away my French citizenship. I am never going to give away my French citizenship. Right? So make it easy for me to come here. Change policies, give tax breaks for startups, for instance, and so on and so on. You can challenge assumptions. If you're not happy with the political system, you can run up for elections. Create your own party. Vote for yourself. You'll get 1 vote, so what? At least you have voted. Right? I am upset when people in democracies are not voting because they're basically allowing whomever wins to be the person in power. If you're not happy with any of the candidates, show up and be the candidate. It's okay, only 1 vote, but at least you've expressed your opinion. That's my take on it. Challenge assumptions. You don't have to assume that things are one way and will never change. You're the inspiration for change. You can change things. Next one. Have you seen this ever? Yeah? I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but here's a suggestion. And actually, we just talked about this in a meeting this morning. In some instances, you may want to highlight what you're thinking is a bad idea. Let me give you an example. When you're a startup or you're pitching a new idea to your boss, and you feel that this idea is going to be controversial, you know that they're going to say no, most likely. Or it's very difficult to get them to be convinced. What you can do is in your presentation, at some point, you say, you know what? Here's a reason why you should not invest in my startup. Here's a reason why you should not agree with me. And you list all the ideas. Now, first of all, they're going to laugh. Like, if you're actually there to convince them, like, why are you telling me not to invest? You're here to convince me. Secondly, it will show you as genuine and authentic. When you have all the startups in front of investors, they do the same thing. They sell themselves. They say, my product is amazing. My team is fantastic. Invest with me. You'll get a 20 times return. And of course, 90% of the startups fail. Right? So the investor has to find what's the flaw in the startup. If you make it easier for your boss, for the investor to see why it's wrong with your idea, it makes you look more genuine, more authentic. You stand apart from the crowd. Also, by doing this, you prevent them from thinking of other weaknesses. Now, be honest, list everything, but they'll be blocked by your way of presenting. And then don't forget to highlight your strengths. After showing your weaknesses, show why they should invest. Of course, you're not telling them, hey, bye, thank you for meeting with me. I'm happy that you're not investing, right? You show why it could be a bad idea, by competition. You could be eaten up by Facebook, by Google, by Gojek, whatever, right? And then highlight why you're still an interesting case. What you're doing to address these challenges. Why you're not going to be eaten away by Google. Last one, not exactly the last one. Being first is not always worth it. I mentioned Google, but there's many examples where actually it doesn't always make sense. There's maybe one area where it makes sense to be the first one is when you have a strong network effect. Facebook is a typical example. Once you start aggregating many users, millions, hundreds of millions of users, it makes it very difficult for another to come in and say, hey, I'm a new social media, right? Like, come to my area. It's possible, but it's very difficult. Apart from this, there's many, many cases where it's not always worth it to be the first one to launch something. These were the Wright brothers who invented the plane. There's no company ever which was called the Wright Airplane Company, right? The big manufacturers are Boeing, Airbus, maybe some Chinese companies now, and Brazilian. That's it. Google, as I mentioned, was the 18th search engine. Imagine, there were 17 search engines, and there's these 2 dudes like Sergey and Larry, 2 co-founders of Google, in their, doing their PhD, not even wanting to quit. Right? They don't quit their PhD. Like, I want to have my degree. I'm going to do this thing on the side. And they tried to sell the company, and they did not find $1 million. They asked for $1 million. Nobody, and they could not find anyone interested. They would try to sell it. Imagine. All right, I'm almost done. What else? do I have here? Procrastination. Who procrastinates? Come on, be honest. Oh, come on, everyone. Hands up. Procrastination, being lazy. I'm not known to procrastinate, but the thing is, I do procrastinate still. Now, you can do this. I read this recently. There's some research that shows that you can do this in a very effective way under one condition. Do you know what that condition is? How can it be effective to procrastinate? Anyone wants to give a shot? How can procrastination be effective? There's one condition. It cannot? No, there is one condition. It's not a trick question. I don't do tricks, just in interviews. Deadline? Maybe. That could be one. So the research shows that if you start thinking or working initially on whatever you need to work on, and then you let it to rest, because your subconscious mind will continue its work. Right? So you start working on something. Let's say you're building a business plan for a startup. You're writing an article for your magazine or your newspaper. You start thinking and jotting down ideas, and then you let it to rest. You have a walk, you start reading another book, and then your mind, whether you like it or not, will still process information. Research has shown this. The additional advantage of doing this is that you remain open-minded. If you do everything like I often do, from start to finish, and you finish, you're done. You don't think about it anymore. You're closed-minded. You're not going to be open for new suggestions. So actually, starting to work on something, so not procrastinating and leaving for the things to the last minute, right? Not everything. Get started. Get a little bit done initially. Then come back to it is actually very creative, very useful. Another interesting thing here, and I think this is particularly useful in this context. Get exposed to different cultures. One thing that research is also showing is that there is a huge value to being exposed to different cultures. Now, be careful. That doesn't mean just traveling and enjoying other cultures, which is what I do a lot. It's actually working in that environment. What is also very important, the most important factor is the length of that stay. And research has shown with fashion designers, specifically, for instance, Europeans, I think there's a British fashion designer, I don't know the name, I'm not into fashion, who spent 20 or 30 years in Japan working there, then came back, has been then awarded with many, many awards in the fashion industry. Right? So actually being exposed and forcing yourself to be exposed to different cultures is really key to being creative and innovative in whatever you do. And if you can't travel, or if you don't have the money, or if you have family here, and you can't just live in another country because it's not easy, visa purposes, family reasons, I have a mom in France, I have a grandfather who's 94 years old. I try to come and visit him. So it's not always easy to live in another country. You can still read books, you can still read blogs, you can still be on YouTube and be open-minded to another perspective. Creativity always surges that way. So remain open-minded, try to see different things. I'm closing off on this, last 30 seconds, Sebastian's extension number 2. Once you had enough of me, you never have enough because there's still one more thing. I told you I have tons of bad ideas. So one bad idea I have, with actually one woman in this room, I'm not the only one who has bad ideas, Pera, who's hiding in the middle. I've actually launched something a year ago which is called 10x MBA, 10xmba.com. What is this? It's a 1-month online program. It's not free, but wait, there's something free at the end. So wait. Where I try, with a bunch of mentors from around the planet, from Google, from Apple, from Amazon, we try to share with participants these values I shared with you. How can you think 10x, 10 times bigger? 10% more, yeah, everyone can do that. You can do 10% more work, 10% more impact, 10% more sales. How can you do 10 times that? How can you go from, let's say, Google, who was trying to sell itself for $1 million, and being a company worth almost $1 trillion today, right? I think it's about $600 billion on the stock market. How can you do this? Right? I think I have a few elements here which are not rocket science. However, this program focuses on being hands-on. It's not lectures. It's online, and I focus on emerging markets. So it's only people who are coming from emerging countries mainly. And I want to bring people from participants from different areas so they can learn from each other, and it's hands-on. You will cry when you do this program. You will sweat. It's intense. People who work with me, they have a hard time. Some hate it, most love it, I hope. But people who work with me at Google, and you can ask people who have worked with me, understand what this is, right? When I talk about procrastination and producing a lot, you will get a feel for this. If you go through the program, you will get an understanding, and then everything in your life afterwards was like, wow, that's so easy. Like, I don't have Sebastian like whipping me during a month, forcing me to produce things and getting, results done. And then everything will seem easy. I was like, I've got plenty of time in my hands. I have 24 hours in a day, just like you do. Surprising, right? But I think I do quite a lot, and I'm still not satisfied. Right? So I'm still learning on how I can maximize my time and feel more satisfied and fulfilled in my life. So the free part is, here are the 10 values. It's very similar to what we talked about today. You can check more. Para is here, right in the middle. Just a coincidence that she's actually here and she's helping me with this. I have someone an Indian person who's moved to Singapore. I have people in the UK helping me with this. You can check out the mentors. I have my old boss, Nelson, ex-VP at Google, who's one of the mentors of the program. And if you want to join, there will be a free online meetup, I think in about a month's time. Just send me an email. That's it. Just send me an email, and I've lost the slide. This is one of my personal email addresses, network. Seb is Sebastian, network Seb. You can find me on LinkedIn, worst case scenario. Send me an email, and we will select 20 people from Indonesia, India, Singapore to be part of a 1 hour, 90-minute session. It will be a very, very small flavor of what we do with 10x MBA. It will be for free, so you can get a flavor of it. And then if you want to engage in the program, then you will have access to that afterwards. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you learned a few things. I hope you take away one thing with you, and thank you for listening to me.
All right.
I'll just test another one. He never heard of one of the places that you've been to. Which are the part of Indonesia that I've been to? Dia ni udah pergi ke tempat yang banyak, bahkan kita nggak pernah dengar di Indonesia. Come on, start with one. Which part of Indonesia that you've been to?
The one that, do you know Garut? Anyone know Garut? Next to Ben? They know better than you.
Okay. Not Garut. Next.
So next to Garut, I think there's a small village called Cipanas. No? See, you know. And it's funny because the Lonely Planet, the tourist guidebook, said there was a rental of scooters in that village or in Garut. I searched everywhere. Nothing. They clearly never have been there. I was very upset at Lonely Planet. And I wanted to go to the volcano, Papandayan.
Siapa yang belum pernah dengar Papandayan? Siapa yang belum pernah? Aku.
Who has been there?
Cuman gua.
They know it.
Mas nggak mas.
They know it, right?
They just don't want to admit.
So anyway, I walked around for 2 hours in the village, and I really want to go on a scooter. I hate to go on a tour group. I like to be independent. I was not skateboarding back then, so I did not skateboard on the volcano. But I actually went in the street, and I do not speak Bahasa, so I tried to convince someone to give me their motorbike.
In return, what did you give?
A hug. No, I offered my passport and a few rupiahs, right? What I would pay a normal rental agency. I don't know how much it is, like maybe. So hang on, what I've never told him. I didn't get that. Making fun of me.
I said you're very smart.
Right. He didn't say that. Okay, since he's making fun of me, I have.
No, really.
I know the smile, the Yansen smile. If you don't know Yansen well enough, look for the triangle smile. Triangle smile like this means he's making fun of you. I know him well enough. He's continuing. What he doesn't know is I have 3 passports. 3 friends of same citizenship.
You're talking to media, you know.
It's fine. I don't have any secrets that I can't share, unlike you. If you want to have more details about Yansen, ask me. So I use the reason why I have 3 passports is because I travel so much. The embassy has given me a valid passport, so I can actually get a visa for a country while I'm traveling. So what I did when I was in Indonesia, because I'm scared of, I kind of don't look Indonesian exactly. So if I have an accident with a scooter, I kind of worry, even if I'm not responsible, I probably will be guilty just because of the way I look. Right? So I thought, I'm not going to trust the police. So I'm going to give a passport which does not have my immigration stamp.
So if I have to flee the country, I can still flee with my passport. Anyway, that's what I did. So then I took the motorbike. So what's funny is that the guy then called his brother and said, oh, yes, I have a motorbike. He comes with this massive motorbike. By the way, I've never ridden a motorbike back then. I've never ridden a motorbike or a scooter, right? So I'm like asking for this thing. It looks like like the Batmobile, like by the motorbike, massive black thing, like it's beautiful. They're like, no, I don't want this. So then he continues to find something else. Anyway, very good experience. And then obviously my phone breaks. Oh, yeah, I remember. I go to Papandayan at 5 o'clock in the morning for the sunrise. And I was using a BlackBerry back then because there was no very good smartphone. And then my connection with Telkomsel, and if there's any Telkomsel guy here, I want to complain. The data dropped. Like I was gone with my subscription, so I could not use Google Maps anymore. So I did not know where to go, so I just stopped every now and then.
Are you going to say
in the
Are you
room.
going to say something bad about Telkomsel? Because
No,
they're going to
because
sponsor this space.
hang on. The good thing about Telkomsel is that then I went to Garut and I complained, and they gave me free of charge another SIM card with the thing. So thank you, Telkomsel. Either way, the way it goes, these kind of stories, I stop at, oh, I'm upset at Telkomsel. Really, they're really bad guys. Or I continue the story and say, oh, thank you, Telkomsel. Right? So I can adjust, right? Whatever I want.
They're going to sponsor this space.
Okay. So thank you, Telkomsel. Thank you.
Jadi si Sebastian juga, he's been to Bromo, he's been to Bali.
Yeah, but that's obvious.
He got robbed in Bali too.
Yeah. First time in my life last year, and I was making jokes. I was coming back, walking. So I stayed in Kuta because I want to learn surfing on my own. Like I love to learn things on my own. It was last year. Again, checking all the YouTube videos. So I come back late at night, having after my dinner in the Kuta area. Not very recommended, as you probably know. Cherry Poppies Lane, Poppies Lane 1 and 2, which are not nice at night. And I come back, and I think I'm going to go back by the beach because I saw pickpockets. Right? I actually saw them for the first time, like putting hands in the pocket of tourists. And I thought, okay, it's not safe. I'm going to go around. So I go around, and you have all these taxi drivers or fake taxi drivers saying, hey, do you want a ride? And I start making jokes. The first joke I make to one of the guys is to say, well, no, it's okay. God gave me legs. I will use my legs to go back to my hotel. So it doesn't make them laugh. It's okay. It makes me laugh. I continue. And then the second one, hey, do you want a ride? Do you want a taxi? Blah, blah. And I say, so I say, well, do you have a helicopter? Because I only take helicopters as taxis. The guy looks at me like, what is he asking? The guy's so weird. Anyway, I continue. I laugh on my own again. And then the last guy asked me if I want ladies. Right? So I look at him. I turn around. And I'm kind of a bit arrogant at that point. I look at him and I'm like, look at me. Do you really think I need to pay? So then I turn around, I go away. I laugh again. He doesn't laugh.
Did you mention you have the blue eyes and stuff?
Yeah, but it was at night, so you probably didn't see. Anyway, I was being very arrogant, very cheeky, but it made me laugh. So then I walk away. 30 seconds later, my phone was gone. I had it in my hands, and I don't know if it's this guy or someone else who was upset, but he was on a scooter, and I was walking back, like doing some emails. Almost at my hotel, very cheap hotel, very, very nice, but very cheap. And the guy comes with a scooter at low speed, grabs my phone, and then accelerates. Yeah, not a great experience. So from now on, I never do jokes anymore. I stop. Like bad jokes doesn't work.
What I'm trying to say adalah sebenarnya, gue cuma mau kasih kalian lihat. Sebastian ini sebenarnya kelihatannya santai gitu ya, ya nggak sih? He look relaxed. It looks like he really enjoyed his life. Yeah,
I enjoy my life? I just said I was upset and not fulfilled.
Wait. This guy, yeah, he's managing 100 countries with 30 people. In entire Asia, entire Africa, entire Middle East. Jadi you can imagine, semua itu different time zone, ya nggak sih? So he practically do not sleep. At Google, people don't sleep. That's one that he did not mention.
Sleep,
okay?
As one entrepreneur from Jordan in the Middle East said to me one day, he had a business in Jordan and in Boston, in the US, and he said, sleep is for the weak. Oh my God, it's not true, I sleep. But I was like, oh my God, sleep is for the weak. That was harsh.
What's your average hours you sleep?
No, I try to sleep 8 or 9 hours. Just I keep thinking, right? Maybe it's bad advice what I gave you. Like, reading a lot, producing a lot, because I love to have like different areas of interests. Then at night, I keep thinking. Right, so I wake up and then I start writing my ideas and I start to read. So the problem, I spend probably easily 9 to 10 hours per night in bed, but I don't sleep that amount. That's the problem.
That's why you look so handsome. I want to get to my next point.
Thank you.
Di Google,
Let's have a.
di Google.
Thank you. I'll make
People,
it,
he's taking photo.
it's okay.
Don't stay too close.
What you don't know is we're twin brothers. I don't know why you're laughing. We look alike.
Kita itu seumuran.
We're the same year. Within 2 weeks, I'm his eldest, so he has to show respect to me. As you can see, he's showing a lot of respect to me. I'm 2 weeks older than him.
They do not have comment because they couldn't believe it because I look older than you.
Yeah, because I'm 20.
See, they're laughing. Okay. Next, I want to talk about di Google itu ada satu culture namanya 20%. 20%. Jadi people actually do something on their own, something that they really like, something they really enjoy, and I want Sebastian to explain a little bit about this cultures of 20%. It's actually udah kerja 100%, you do your work 100%, on top of it you do a 20%.
Yes. Yeah,
So
more
you
or
actually
less.
do more than that. You do because they believe that you are always under capacity. You can do more than what you can do. You always think that you already do so much, but you can do more.
So here's the interesting aspect. I'll expand on this and talk about Toyota because I want to show it's not just Google. As I mentioned, innovation is key. If you don't want to die as a company, look at, here's some data. If you look at, I think the companies on the NASDAQ, one of the top markets in the US, the technology stock, the stock index, 40 years ago, and you look at the companies now, or you look at the Dow Jones, 100 years ago and today, most of the companies, half of the companies have disappeared. They do not exist. Massive empires do not exist anymore because they have struggled to innovate. So one thing we try to do at Google is try to get innovation from within. We acquire a lot of startups. Like, I don't know if you know, but Google Maps is not a Google product initially. We acquired a company in Switzerland called Keyhole, if I'm not mistaken, in 2003. That became Google Maps. Android is not from Google initially. Android was acquired. YouTube was acquired in 2006, right, for a lot of money, $1.6 billion. It was not from Google initially. Right? So innovation can come from outside. You can acquire these companies, but you should also try to spur it from within. One way we do this at Google is to try and give time to people and tell them you can spend roughly 1 day a week, roughly, to work on what you want. It has to be aligned with the company's mission, not necessarily your work, but the mission. And we try to get innovation that way. So many things happen that way. I think we had Gmail come out of a 20%. The Gmail was not an initial Google product decided by the company. It was some random guy in the corner saying, hey, we need to build a webmail service which provides, I don't know, at the time it was 100 megabytes or 1 gigabyte of free email. It was, you had to have an invite in 2004 to be able to have Gmail. So it tried to produce a much better service, but it came from within, from the ranks. I want to talk about Toyota because the problem is what happens in Japan, which is probably an extreme version of Indonesia, but I see this in Indonesia, and this is why I talked about challenging assumptions. It's very difficult to get employees to criticize their bosses. It's very difficult to get feedback from employees in a company. It's very difficult for people to innovate in companies. So what they try to do at Toyota, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's there, they try to force employees to give feedback. And the way they do this is they paint a red square on the floor and they put an employee one by one in the square, and you have to say at least one thing which is bad about the company. Right? So one thing you can do if you're a manager or if you're in a team, if you're trying to inspire others, is to say, do we really have to put a red square on the floor? We can do this. It's possible. But you have to feel safe, right? You have to make people feel psychologically safe to criticize, to give feedback, to suggest ideas. Because if you don't have that safe environment, people will feel that they can't do this. So this is like not a metaphor, it's actually a literal red box, red square. You can go to that extent, force people to do this. That's just one example. But my point here is not just about Google. At Google, we take this in an extreme fashion because we're very conscious that competition can come from anywhere. Right? This is why we're investing aggressively on the cloud, for instance. And in the cloud area, the cloud platform, we're not number one. Amazon is leading by far. Microsoft is doing a fantastic revival. Don't quote me on this one, but I didn't have a very good image of Microsoft 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I prefer to work for Google, which is open source, more driven towards startups and developers. That's more in line with my values. Right? In my job, actually, I have no incentive. I have no KPI, no performance indicator to get money for Google. I'm not here to get more customers for Google. That's great. Either you like Google's products and it's great and you use it in your technology, in your mobile app, and I'm very happy and I can make it a use case, or you're not happy, and that's great about my job because that I can call it feedback. It's called feedback to the engineering teams. They have to improve the product to make it useful for India, for Indonesia. In India, 98% of the population does not have a credit card. They cannot purchase anything online, right? So I want to make sure that Google products don't have to require a credit card, for instance, right? So that's great about my job. I don't have to force you. My point here is innovation is key, right? So find different ways, whatever way it is, get inspired by different companies to find a way for you to innovate in your personal life, in your work life. If you're managing a team, you can do that.
Continue to your point. Kalau kita dengar dia ngomong kan kayak gampang banget gitu kan, kayak innovative mindset, being open-minded, collaborate, ya, kerja bareng, kerja keras, produce. Ini sebenarnya ada satu lagi rahasia Google. There's one more secret to Google mindset, which is actually available online. But again, we just do not look deeper. There's one thing yang it's not just about innovations, but it's also about measuring, tracking. Jadi banyak orang nggak ada guidance kayak dia jalan tuh entah kemana, kayak bikin apa aja gitu, suka-suka gitu. Nah, in Google cultures, in a company internally, they have one guidance, which we also try to learn, which is OKR. OKR itu adalah objective and key result. Let's see that. Kenapa tuh kayak gini-gini tuh? Oke. Jadi objective and key result. Jadi penting banget. Mau kita kerja, mau kita bisnis, mau kita bikin startup, mau dalam hidup kita, you need to have an objective. And then you also have to measure it based on the key result that you define in the beginning. So I want Sebastian, if you could share a little bit more on OKR, and including tadi yang dia bilang adalah di Google tuh ada 360 review. 360 review tuh basically, as a director, as a manager, you get review by your subordinate. Jadi anak buah tuh boleh nge-review bosnya. Jadi tidak ada yang top down saja. Selalu kan kayak manajer pasti merasa benar, direktur benar, bos-bos benar. Ini yang bawah tuh nge-review juga yang atas. So you want to talk a little bit more about OKR, how you guys actually do it, and then what it will be useful for everyday life, everyday business, everyday even as an employee.
So I think the value of setting objectives should be quite obvious in the sense of which direction are you taking? Where are you headed towards? What is it that you're trying to achieve? If you don't know, it's going to be very difficult to organize your daily life. So we do have this OKR system in place, which is very simple. It's stating an objective, and the key result has to be quantifiable. Right? It's a metric. It's an indicator. Right? If you can't measure it, some people say don't do it. Right? It's not worth it because you will not be able to measure whether it's successful or not. So try as much as possible, even if it's about, let's say, you're journalists and you want to produce.
Yeah, you want to give an example for like the Tempo team when they're producing contents.
I guess it depends on what your role is, but let's say if you're from a marketing standpoint, let's say you may want to look at page views, right, on your website.
Or editorial.
Editorial, from what perspective?
Content.
Like the content. I mean, I love to write, so let's say one of the objectives I would think of, but I want to be careful because here's the thing with metrics. I'm already anticipating, but if you set a metric for yourself, you're going to be tempted to game it, right? You're going to do everything possible to achieve that target, maybe neglecting everything else. So every time you set a metric, an indicator, try to think of a counter metric, something that doesn't go into the opposite direction, which prevents you from gaming the system. Let me give you a very concrete example. You're a journalist, let's say at Tempo. You could have an objective of saying, you know what, I want to produce 30 pieces of work this month, 30 articles. But then you're going to say, fine, I can do the quantity, but the quality may suffer. So this is what you need to know, an additional metric, which will kind of measure the quality of this. Otherwise, I'm going to produce 30 content today. I'll do it by this evening, and I'm done for the month. Woohoo! I go to Bali. I get my phone stolen again. But the point is, think about getting another metric, which will be able to assess and make sure you're not gaming one metric just for the sake of gaming it. This is especially true if you have a team. Right? You're setting the objectives to your team and say, you know, on my team, I want everyone to achieve 30 articles in a month. And then you're disappointed because they produce 30, but it's nobody's looking at the article, nobody's reading it. So you could say something like, how many page views are we getting? You know, because if people are finding the content not interesting, they're probably not going to read it. How many likes do I get on Facebook? Right? If you share the content on Facebook or just in the snippets, you know, how many people talk about it? Comments? What is the engagement? So try to think of multiple metrics like this, which will, you know, counterweight every single thing that you're doing. Set it for yourself because this gives you a direction. you don't have to increase. It doesn't have to go from 30 to 50 to 100 the next month. But at least you know whether you're on target every month, right? To what you want to achieve.
Nah, di Google, jadi yang pertama adalah sebenarnya the team at the bottom will propose the objective to their boss, to the manager. Nah, but the manager is always the one who calibrate. Jadi di-calibrate lagi. Jadi of course the top itu akan nentuin directionnya. Okay? We want Tempo to be the #1 media in Indonesia. Nah, itu sangat absurd. Key resultnya apa? Top media itu apa sih? Kuantitatifnya apa? Apakah by page view, apakah by unique visitors, atau by revenue? Nah, itu di-quantify. Nah, dari situ pimpinannya udah nentuin kayak gitu, each of the manager will talk to their team. The team will come and propose. Nah, jadi dari situ juga akan ketahuan sebenarnya timnya itu capable-nya sama siapa. And every team member actually share the bigger objective together. Itu yang nggak ada banyak di perusahaan Indonesia. When you work in silo, I'm editorial, I'm business, I'm distribution. So distribution have their own objective, sales have their own objective, editorial have their own objective. Jadi they are competing internally. Jadi saling competing, itu yang bahaya. Nah, harusnya semua berjuang di goal yang sama. Kayak pertandingan sepak bola gitu loh, kan lagi World Cup nih. Mau gelandang, mau back, mau striker, mau penjaga gawang, pokoknya kita mesti menang. Apakah 5-1 atau 3-0 atau 1-0, pokoknya kita menang. Nah, masing-masing melakukan kerjaannya. Nah, jadi itu yang kalau kalian bisa melakukan itu in your company, even you as a boss, you as a founder, you as an employee, as a team member, you as a journalist, semua tuh bisa. Tapi a lot of the times, orang tuh kayak, I don't care what you're doing, as long as I achieve my objective. These are the things that is not happening in Google. People are very collaborative. Of course, there's a plus point and minus. We're not going to talk about the minus.
There's politics everywhere, including at Google. It's not always easy, but yes, having these OKRs makes it very transparent to other teams what you're working on. And you can have joint OKRs. You can share an objective with another team. If you're a journalist producing content, you do want to have readership. You do want people to view your content, right? So you will be invested in making sure that there is traffic going to the website, one way or another. Anyway, so I had one more thing in mind, which the slide I skipped is about getting feedback. As you're working on your OKRs or anything you're working on, the best feedback you can get is actually not from your manager, who will have a tendency to be critical, but from your peers. Right? So if you're a journalist, get feedback from fellow journalists. If you're a writer, a novel writer, get feedback from a novel writer. It can be other companies, but these are the ones who will understand what you're doing the best and can give you the best feedback. So don't hesitate to go to peers for coaching. Not necessarily managers only, who will be very critical.
Ya, jadi I hope the sessions is useful. If you guys are very, very much interested, I want to encourage you to talk to anyone in this room, especially people at the back. Ya, ngobrol sama teman-teman Tempo, angkat tangan dong. And this is a beautiful space. Ya, yang mau ikutan sini nanti bisa follow Instagramnya, nanti bisa juga tahu segala macam. Ada minggu depan kita akan ada lagi. Minggu depan there will be another topic on how to manage your online presence on internet by another Googler. This is Amu at the back. Amu angkat tangan. Amu akan ngomongin satu topik yang tadi Sebastian ngomong, how to manage your online presence. Kita udah punya website, kita udah punya traffic. Gimana sih kita manage traffic kita lebih baik? Tadi Sebastian ngomong tentang apakah ada website lain yang nge-refer kalian, so is a quality backlink atau it's not really high quality backlink. Misalnya kayak gitu. How to optimize your web dan segala macam. Jadi there'll be more things coming up in this space. I hope you guys find your time, talk to people at the back from Tempo and also from Kumpul team. Ada Faye, mana Faye? Ada mana lagi? Mega, ada si Mega. Ada Mega di situ, ada Wilson. Talk to them how you guys can actually participate, do more things, and actually work together in this collaborative space by Tempo and Kumpul. I'm afraid we don't have Q&A sessions. Sebastian will have another meeting at 2, tapi meetingnya belum mulai. So in the meantime, I'm going to close the session, but if you want to talk to him directly, you have his email. But kalau mau langsung, yang mau foto bareng siapa? Photo session. They're laughing. They're not interested. They're just laughing. Yeah. Jadi we have another ex-Googler di belakang. Alisa, raise your hand. Alisa dulu di Google. Sekarang he's doing things with Digital Raya at Launchpad also, Google projects. Feel free to also talk to her. Nah, jadi next week you'll see her again here together with Abu. Jadi thank you very much. Semoga berguna. If I may to close with one line for this session ya. Sebenarnya yang paling penting adalah kita tuh mikirin orang lain. In a lot of things that we do, if you focus on the users, if you just focus on the users, there are too many times we focus on ourselves. Gue maunya kayak gini. No, it's not about you. It's never about you. It's always about the people. Selalu tentang orang lain. Seperti yang kita tahu kan, sebaik-baiknya manusia adalah yang bermanfaat bagi orang lain. Kalau kita mikirin itu aja. Focus on the users, be useful. Jadi cuma itu aja. Innovations is all about solving problems. It's all about bringing solutions with technology. Jadi kalau kita mikirin itu aja, mau nulis kayak, mau kerja kayak, mau jual bakso kayak, it's all about the people. Be useful, focus on the users, and then you will be more innovative than Google. Terima kasih, sampai ketemu lagi.
Thank you.